The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast do not necessarily reflect or represent the views and opinions of WBGR Network. Any questions or concerns about what is said should be directed to the show host, whose information will be provided upon request.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Ask DrDallas. And what are we doing here? So we're going to start our show in October, but we decided that we would start this week so that we could introduce ourselves to one another. And so some of you know that I am Dr. Dallas, and I've been in the area for a while doing health and fitness. In fact, it's been 22 years since we started Life by Dallas Incorporated. Life by Dallas had an original mission, and that was to educate as many people as humanly possible on just what we need to do to have a better quality of life. We are living longer, believe it or not. It doesn't appear to be that from people that are dying around us at young ages, but our longevity has extended here, but the quality of life has not extended. And every day, and I mean every day, I get a question from someone, I'm having a conversation with someone just about a lot of things that aren't necessarily accurate and or true, dealing with health, a lot of myths, a lot of taboos, a lot of things that we don't want to talk about. And we're going to jump right into that because this show is going to spend a lot of time talking about sexual health. When we look at where we are as a community, as a people, we find that we're somewhat deteriorating. And as much as we would like to point our fingers at various individuals or organizations, at the end of the day, we're all a part of that community. And so what we want to do is we want to educate ourselves so that we can begin to change our community as much as humanly possible. And so what I plan to do here, I always think that if you state what your mission is, and then as you move towards it, you can see the benchmarks along the way in terms of whether or not you're qualified to take up the space that you're taking. I always tell people at the end of the day, you should ask yourself the question, did my life matter? Did I make a difference today? Or, I spent 15 years working with the sick and shut in, people that were transitioning from this life to the next life. And many of them were in ICU. Many of them were on ventilators, sometimes for a day or two, sometimes for weeks, sometimes for months. And I would often sit with some of them and pray, and I would just ask myself the question, wow, this person is still here and really occupying a piece of space, but just that, just an occupation kind of thing. So I ask individuals to ask yourself the question, are you just occupying some space? And more importantly, does it matter? So the space that you are occupying at the end of each day, how much of a difference or an impact that you have on the lives of others? Because at the end of the day, that's also what matters, is the impact that we have on other individuals. So the impact that I wish to share by being here on this station, and why did we do this? We did this because we need a platform. As many of you know, I visit a lot of the churches in our community. I speak a lot about holistic health and well-being, how to prepare foods, what we need to keep our body functioning properly. We have these organs, tissues, and glands, and they were put inside of us to do certain things to function. It's just like your vehicles. You just can't continue to operate them if you're not going to prepare and make sure that the maintenance is taken care of, to put oil in the vehicle, the proper lubricants and fluids, and we just don't seem to understand that our bodies are machines as well. It's a piece of equipment that has a lot of intricate parts to it. And if those parts are not taken care of, the car is not going to move from A to B. The body is not going to function the way that it should. And when you start talking about sexual health, I think we've gotten into too many of the reality shows where we've kind of lost a sense of reality. It really isn't the drama that you see on TV. It's a reality, and the reality is that when we don't take care of ourselves, when we're not exercising on a regular basis, when we don't have a proper diet, and we'll talk about what exercise looks like, we'll talk about what a proper diet is. If we don't have the right attitude, where we have a positive attitude, our mental outlook is something that is inspiring, encouraging, motivating to other people as well as ourselves. I mean, because that's what motivates you, and hopefully that's what encourages you, is the fact that you've been able to make a difference in someone else's life. And if all of those wills aren't working together, then the functionality of the sexual parts are not going to work. And so when you start looking at the disintegration of the family unit in and of itself, and that was what got us through slavery and so many other things, it was the family unit as a whole. And when that no longer exists, because you're not having the elements that go along to health in and of itself, and sexual health is just a part of that, but the unrealistic goals, or the unrealistic ideas that we have about what we can do and cannot do are just that. And so we want to educate ourselves on that. And when you start talking about sex, we talk about, if I ask the question, let's have a conversation about sex, what would that look like to most people? Especially in the church and places where we see that the oneness ministry or the one flesh ministry. I mean, in most churches now, when you come to the altar for prayer, one of the biggest requests, or largest requests, I should say, is praying for marriages, and it's always the marriage is under attack, the enemy is after the marriage. And that's true, but how much of this are we actually playing a role in or having a part of? And we have to start looking at that. It ties into our health, the nutritional aspect, it's the biological component, it's the chemistry of the body and how it works. And we just tend to ignore that. And so when I come in, it's always like, so what are you going to tell us? You're single, you're a minister. I can tell you a lot about how the body ought to function, and I don't need to be in your bedroom to know that you are performing less than functional or optimal or not even close to optimal, simply by looking at the other characteristics of you. And we don't like to talk. I read an article just yesterday, I think it was in the Essence magazine, that Serena braces the cover of. It's talking about how we have to get away from body shaming. And I'm saying to myself, how did we get to a point where we are talking about body shaming in a sense that, as we're trying to call out to individuals the importance of physical activity, that it becomes body shaming? I mean, everything now is just so walking on eggshells that it makes it difficult to reach people where they are, to give them the handle or the hand up that they need to get out of the circumstance that's destroying them internally, which has ramifications down the line. Because again, if the mental piece is not working the way that it should, there's no way you're going to get an erection. There's no way you're going to have the vagina not be dry. So you talk about those things and how that plays a role. Also, what we're going to discuss on the show is we're going to have a general discussion, like the first 5 minutes of every show, just to talk about the top trends. What's going on? Because inevitably, every day, I'm just like, what? Did I hear that correctly? And here, most recently, would happen to be the Popeyes Chicken Challenge. And so I would ask the question, is the chicken sandwich every day more important than satisfying your partner in the bedroom? Because you simply can't have the two. And so it's not about putting down the people that eat meat. It's not about, saying that you have to be a vegetarian or a vegan or a raw foodist. It's simply understanding the things that we're participating in, the things that we're putting into our systems, and understanding what's wrong with chicken. People always say, why can't I eat chicken? And I'm not the person that says that you can't do anything. I usually try and tell people to stay away from white sugar, white flour, and salt, white salt. It will kill you. It has just a terrible impact on the human body. It's a drug. They are drugs for all practical purposes, because when ingested, they become highly addictive, and when they get into the blood cells, they wreak havoc. It's as simple as that. And so it's understanding the chemical makeup of the body again. For those of you who don't know me personally, so my background is civil engineering and architecture. I practiced civil engineering and architecture in private sector in the Washington, D.C. area for 15 years before starting my company. My company was started by default. I actually got tuberculosis when I was in the military. I didn't find out about it until I got back from an overseas trip, and pharmaceutical therapy regimen that they had me on was literally not good for me. My body was not adapting well to that. At that time, I was involved in bodybuilding and doing a lot of things as naturally as possible. And I think that there's just a conflict between what I was ingesting to get better and what my body was acclimated to. And after doing some research and listening to some people talk about a whole raw food diet and how it could literally change one's circumstance in terms of disease and illness, I decided that I would do that. And I did that, and in 2 weeks I was feeling better than I had been feeling in 6 months of being sick. And so I went that route and then went on to pursue a degree and a doctorate as a naturopath, to be able to spread the knowledge that natural foods have a healing power for the body that is just amazing. It's almost like a miracle, but then when you go back and study the chemistry of the body and how that all works, and luckily for me, I did have that as a background. So as I was learning and training to be a traditional naturopath, a lot of the things came with a lot of familiarity. I should say not easy, but I was very well aware of biology, chemistry of the human body and how that works. And so I think that in and of itself is pretty amazing. We have an entire line of herbal teas that are based on an engineering principle in terms of what the organs and tissues in the body need, and how the herbs are nothing but vegetables, by the way, that work very good. If we go back to that, the whole what's wrong with the Popeye's chicken challenge thing, and it's not necessarily what's wrong with it. It's when we start combining oil and starches and or oil and meat. So a lot of us are focused on the chicken sandwich, but what about the fried French fries that we have maybe with our salad or maybe with our fish sandwich? When you mix oil and starches and or oil and meats, one, the body's brain doesn't work like we think and move. You know, the body's brain processes one thing at a time for the most part, and when you're talking about the digestive system and how it works. And so when you mix the oil and the meats together, and or the oil and the starches, it works quicker to start to process the oil. And that temperature of the oil and the way that that works means that in the meantime, the starch that was combined with the oil, or the meat that was combined with the oil, is going to have to be put onto like a holding table while the oil itself is taken care of. And in the meantime, the starch either putrefies and spoils in the stomach, or the meat putrefies and spoils in the stomach. And you don't have to be a naturopath or a person with a science and engineering background to know what happens when that happens. Just look at any trash can or garbage can where you've disposed of unwanted meat or leftover meat, and what happens when you come back a couple of days later. And just as a reminder, the human body's temperature usually stays between 98 and 102 degrees Fahrenheit versus 35 degrees Fahrenheit that your refrigerator may be tuned into. And after a week or two of leftover meat in there, you see what happens to it. So imagine that in the human body at the temperatures that it keeps. Yeah, that's an ugly thing to think about, and it's uglier to look at, to smell. And so that is actually what gets into our blood cells, and that's what causes the problem. It's not necessarily that eating meat is terribly bad in and of itself. I mean, our ancestors did that for years. It's especially when we start doing the food combination. So we're going to talk about things like that. We're going to bring in our kitchen and show you how to put some healthy things together. We're going to do whatever is required to make sure that you're not only feeling well, but you're performing well. And that's not just sexually. We're going to focus a lot on the sexual aspect, but also to make sure that your mind is working. You know, how many times have you put your keys down and you forgot where you put the keys, or you read something and you forgot what you read? A lot of that too is the brain is a part of this machine, and it has to be fed. And I tell people often, if you eat pickles and ice cream, your brain is going to function like a pickle and an ice cream. It's just not going to be able to retain information the way that we should, and be able to, you know, have a level of discernment the way that we should, that allows us to move in wisdom. Because a lot of what I'm seeing today is simply us not thinking clearly. I mean, there's just no clarity to some of the decisions that we're making. And it's wreaking havoc on our lives. It's wreaking havoc on our communities, our nation, and our country, our world. It really is. So we all play a role in where we are today, and we can't change the whole world at one time. And it's very seldom is there little or anything that you can do to make that kind of an impact or that kind of a difference, where, right now it seems like the whole world has lost its mind, and so we need to change the whole world. That's just not going to happen overnight. But what can happen is that we can be the change. We can start to do things differently. We can start to think intelligently and start to put things in place that will have a dramatic impact, first and foremost, on our immediate families. And then people will see that and witness that, and then it stretches out to our community, our churches, and then it goes beyond that. And you can take a look at some campaigns and some things that have happened that it looks like a movement, but it didn't just fall out of the sky and cover a percentage of the country at one time. It started with an individual. I'll never forget Yanni many years ago at a concert at the Acropolis. It's something fantastic that he was talking about, and he just says, everything that's great in life started with a simple thought in the mind of a simple person. And if it can happen in anyone's mind, then it can happen in your mind. And so that's what we're going to focus on, is what type of impact are we having on our communities, on our lives? What is our role here? Why are you here? I ask people that question. Why are you here? Why are you in my face? Why am I listening to you? And so we want people to be happy that we're here. I often tell people to write your obituary. The great thing about writing your obituary today is that you can take a look at it. And if it's not impactful, if it's not one of those things that you read and just say, wow, God really used me, then the great thing is that you have an opportunity to change it before the real obituary comes. So let's start just taking a look and a survey of who we are, what we're here for, what our goal in life is to do, and on a daily basis, how are we striving to meet that goal? And at the end of every day, just take a moment to meditate. Take a moment to think about your life for the day. A lot of times we make the same bad decisions or bad choices because we never have a chance to reflect on it. And I think we readily feel that, that wasn't a good thing to say, that wasn't a good thing to do, but before we know it, we're already in it. And so that, too, is a part of what we're going to discuss on this show. We're going to talk about meditation. We're going to talk about taking some time. We're going to talk about turning our phones off, for a day or so. We're going to have to work up to that hour initially, but we're going to get to a point where, as the weeks go on, there's a day that we're just not charged. I have to tell people all the time, they're like, in my face, did you get my text? Did you get my email? Yeah, well, just because you have access to me doesn't mean that you have access to me, especially not 24/7. And get in the habit of leaving it in the car. Does it need to come into the sanctuary with you? Does it need to come into the workplace all day? No, sometimes we just need to get away from that. So the average person, I think it was some ridiculous number, 150 times a minute that people check their messages. I mean, that's a lot of our time, and it's the reason that we're not getting other things done, I feel. So we're going to talk about, how it's a great piece of technology and we need it, and we love that it allows us to have access to even information that we're giving here. But we also want to talk about how we need to break from that. And so thinking about a break, we're going to go on to a commercial break because I have been talking because we were just trying to let you know what we're going to be doing here. So we're going to go to a commercial break, and we'll be back in a couple of minutes. And what I need you to do is I need you to share this with all of your friends. I need you to share this with all your friends. I need you to email me, dallas@lifebydallas.com, and let me know what you need me to discuss on a weekly basis for you. And if you're interested in coming on to our show or being a sponsor, then that's the same email as well.
Hello and welcome to the Breakfast Mojo. I'm your host, comedian Coy. We are back. once again, this time it's king versus clown. The clown, which we're talking about here, is none other than McDonald's hotcakes. And now we're gonna also try the Burger King sweet syrupy stacks. Look at the box, isn't that cute? Little box. All right, so we're gonna try and see which is going to be the preferred pancakes, McDonald's or BK, Burger King. So it's nice and hot. So let's see what happens here, folks. Let's see what I'm gonna give a review. So they come with 3 stacks, as you can see, 3. Oh, look at the syrup just oozing. Okay. Let's try this. Let's make a comparison. I need some water. These are falling apart. McDonald's, they didn't fall apart at all, but these are can't really keep their form after pouring syrup on them. There's definitely a distinct taste between the two of them. Similar, but yet distinctly different. But I noticed that Burger King pancakes are a lot more sweeter by itself. The syrup, it really doesn't need syrup. It really does taste like a cake, literally. McDonald's, on the other hand, really not much to go off of. It just tastes like bread. It's really your preference, folks. Do you want hot bread? Or do you want a stack of cakes? Because that's what it tastes like to me. So here's for my review. I'm gonna give this a breakfast booty. I'm gonna give it a breakfast booty. It's a breakfast booty. And I'm gonna give McDonald's a breakfast blah. Because there's really nothing fantastic, even with the syrup added to it. And even without the syrup, it's really nothing fantastic. I could at least say that BK does have a distinct taste without the syrup, which is more sweet, if that's what you prefer. So, would it be the McClown or would it be the King? Let us know at the Breakfast Mojo on WBGR Entertainment. I'm your host, Comedian Coy. We'll have some more stuff coming your way. We're gonna even visit a chef that's gonna cook for us, and we're gonna eat it, huh? Because that's what we do at the Breakfast Mojo.
Welcome back, guys. So I hope you've been sharing. I was just able to share this with you on my personal Facebook page, which is Minister Dallas. That is Minister Dallas, MINISTER. And so what we're doing is we're just introducing ourselves to you. We're just trying to get a feel of what you need and what you want. So if you're on my personal page and you want to send a comment and let me know what it is that you would like this show to look like, because this is your show. This is what we're going to call the People's Show, to make sure that we get you where you need to be. We're talking to some people just this morning. A good friend of mine was on his way to the gym, and he was saying, Dallas, I've just got to get you to come over here and work out with me one Monday. It's just so funny watching some of these personal trainers. They look like they're pregnant, and they've got like a lot of clients, and I see the clients, and they're working out 2 months, 3 months at a time. And Dallas, I don't see any difference, and they're still paying these people, and going on. And I was saying, well, people have different goals. And people have, a different mission. And you may not see a physical difference in a person's fat loss or their body weight, even though they've been working with somebody. But if they've been coming to the gym 2-3 times a week with a trainer, and they're actually moving their body during that period of time, there is a difference. And we are going to talk about, what these differences look like, how they have an impact on the body, because the fact of the matter is that you're exercising your heart. You are moving the body. There's some physical activity, but it's just like your bank account. It's like you get paid every 2 weeks. You put your check into direct deposit. You're doing that every 2 weeks, but you're also spending the same amount of money that you're putting into your checking account. You know where I'm going with this, every 2 weeks. So a lot of times it's not the trainer. It could be that the trainer is not, being a bit forceful, but the trainer is getting paid. The trainer's not getting paid to monitor your life. The trainer is getting paid to instruct you for the period in which you're there. And no matter what kind of trainer you have, you know, he's not a musician, and he's not going to be able to snap his fingers and have the weight come off. He's simply instructing you, hopefully, in the proper technique in terms of doing exercises. You know, you work the protagonist and the antagonist muscles on, 3 days out of the week. You switch and do some cardio 2 days out of the week. Things like that, the proper way to balance yourself when you're doing a push-up or a jumping jack. And I'm going into that because we're going to go into that on this show. We're going to transform this into a gym a couple of days so that you guys will know what the proper technique is. But getting back to not seeing a difference, you are seeing there is a difference there. If you're moving your body 45 minutes, 3 times a week, you're making a difference to some degree. I mean, it's better than a person that's not moving their body 3 or 4 times. The difference that's not being seen is not necessarily a lack of instruction or knowledge on behalf of the trainer. It's simply those things that you do outside of the training period. And if you're going to get in your car when you leave the gym after leaving your fitness trainer and consume, a bag of Oreo cookies and then find your way to have the challenge burger and everything else, and you're just not going to see a difference. And I think people continue to pay trainers and they continue to have a relationship with these people, even though it doesn't outwardly appear to be making a difference, is because people know. People know that they're going to get what they put into something. They're going to get back when you reap what you sow, kind of thing. And so I think also people always have this ideology that next week's going to be better. I'm going to do some things differently. I'm starting over. And I always tell people that when that comes with a date, it probably won't happen. I've had people over the years, for many, many, many years, we've done all types of fitness training when we had the studio and the gym in Landover for so many years and haven't been on radio for so many years. Yeah, you've heard it all. And it's just like the child that had his hand in the cookie jar with the chocolate chips on his face and you're wondering where the cookies are and he's saying he doesn't know. You look at people and you begin to know who's going to do what just when they open their mouth and start talking. So there's a certain type of person or characteristics or behavioral patterns of people that have decided or signed up to begin to change their lives and have stuck with it, that you see it when it's coming, versus the people that come and say, Dr. Dallas, I'm going to do this or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, okay, good luck, or, go for it and we'll see. And so a lot of those things are also a part of the mental health piece. So when we talk about holistic health hour, that sounds good. A lot of people like to talk about it, but we really mean holistically. So we're going to be talking about the mind, the body, and the spirit. We're going to talk about that mental fortitude that goes along with just do it. What does it take to get there? And by all means, we just want to continue to encourage and inspire people to do something. And it's difficult for a lot of people. Some of the difficulties that people have, you would be surprised at. Just the fact that people don't want to come to the gym until they've gotten some of their weight off. It's usually not going to happen. I always tell people, come to the gym and let people see you here so that you can say, yeah, look at me now. When you get to that point, and it keeps you going, it helps to establish credibility or accountability, I should say, amongst not necessarily your family and friends, but people that don't know you. It's nothing like watching people that start out and you can see that it's a struggle. It's a struggle for them just to be there. It's a struggle just to think about getting there. And I've seen people like that. And these are the people that I try to really encourage when I see them in the gym. And if they see that you're fit and you're doing your own thing, people think that we're in our own little world. But it means a lot when you come over and you just, say, wow, you're still hanging in there. I saw you on that treadmill, even though they're going 10 miles an hour. 10 miles an hour, 1 mile an hour, that would be. They, are happy that you recognize them and you took the time to say something to them. That, too, goes back to what we were talking about earlier about the time and the space that we occupy here on Earth, and what is that doing? Never underestimate. In our book, Fitness ABCs by Dallas, which is a really good little booklet. I wrote this one year when my secretary quit, or I fired her, I don't know. and the phones were ringing off the hook after our radio programs, and I noticed that every other call was a question that was very similar. And so I think overall we have the same types of questions about health and fitness, and I just compiled the most frequently asked questions and put them into a booklet type that addresses nutrition, fitness, and meditation. And here in the meditation part, I talk about kindness. It's called Fitness ABC. So for nutrition, meditation, and fitness, we compiled a page based on that particular alphabet for each section. I thought that was cool. And so under kindness, I happened to remember this, and I just happened to pick up and tell you about the book as well. So kindness, it says, never underestimate the impact of a simple act of kindness. Kindness can go a long way toward mending and healing broken relationships. True acts of kindness come from the heart, not for accolades. And then we give you a fitness tip at the end of every little tidbit and fact. And so the fitness tip says, next Sunday, perform 1 act of kindness. On Monday, perform 2 acts of kindness. On Tuesday, 3 acts of kindness, and so on until you get to Saturday, where you're performing 7 acts of kindness. And then watch what comes your way. For every act of kindness, you'll receive 2 in return. But remember, true kindness comes from the heart and not from what we're gonna or anticipating getting back. That's a ad lib there. It just says, it stops here where it says, but remember, true kindness flows from the heart. And my little ad lib was, because it's not what we're gonna get in return. That's never the impetus behind why we do what we do. But it's good to know that when we do that, that's just the universal law of life, whatever your religion is or your beliefs are. It's just that, you reap what you sow in life. And so I talked about that to talk about how we ought to encourage one another at the gym and places like that. And that goes to you taking up your space in life and doing well by others. But let's just stay here for a second, because again, this is the show that is introducing Ask Dr. Dallas program. We're going to air here every Monday from 11 to 12. And believe me, the shows will not be like this. We haven't got our promo together. And you know me, I'm usually not one to do things half-cocked. But today was like, well, let's just come out and see where people are. We'll run this a million times during the week and get your feedback and get your suggestions, comments, and more importantly, what you're looking for in terms of some assistance and some help. But while I'm here, and I have a couple of minutes just to gab along, let's talk about kindness. Let's talk about never underestimating the impact of a simple act of kindness. And so while I have you here, while I have you thinking about that, while we're thinking about this fitness tip of performing 1 act of kindness at the beginning of the week and continuing to reiterate that, going up another act each day until we reach 7 on Saturday. How complicated would that be for you? And as we're thinking about today, and we're just about halfway through the day, what act of kindness have you performed today? And at the conclusion of yesterday, how many acts of kindness did you perform? Those are good gauge points, for us to see what type of people we are. I think that one of the nicest things that someone can do is compliment you on your level of kindness. There are a couple of people I know that when I think of their names, I think kindness. And that's a good place to be. And I think a better place to be is to know that when someone thinks about your name, that they're saying the same thing, or they associate you with just, a giving person. So kindness is something that we can all do. We may not all be able to run a marathon. We may not all be able to jump rope for 30 minutes. We may not all be able to put our sneakers on and go to the gym today, even though we have decided that we're going to change our lives. But we can all be kind, and we don't have to be millionaires to be kind. I think a lot of times people sit and wait for people that are financially fitter than we are, physically fitter than we are, people that are just than we are to do the things that need to be done. And because we can't step up to the plate to donate, $10,000 to an organization or to send to Dorian, to the Bahamas because of the hurricane, that we just sit and we wait for other people to be kind. And a lot of times we are the benefactors of other people's kindness on a regular basis, even some of the same individuals that are always kind to us. And we just get so complacent with that we never feel a need to do that for ourselves. So that's one thing I want to leave you with today, if I don't leave you with anything else, is to understand that kindness does go a long way towards mending and healing broken relationships. We talk about what's happened in the country, the whole paradigm shift with going this way and going that way, and and pointing our finger at various individuals. Well, what about in our lives and the relationships that are around us? When we talk about sexual impotence, a lot of that has, how have you spoken to your spouse lately? A lot of times I'm the witness of, just some heavy verbal abuse in relationships, with people. And I just sit there sometimes and I wonder, especially when we have some of our African American men that are running businesses. I mean, it is just difficult out here. It's difficult, being African American women in business. But there are a lot of things that they're subjected to that are just because of their skin color. And you just have to deal with that on a daily basis. And so to come back into your private sanctuary, into your home, into your Zen palace is what I call my place. And to have anybody disrespect you or just treat you in any kind of manner that you really don't have to take. A lot of other things. There are a lot of things that we have to take in life. And this is another show in and of itself. We're going to bring my great friend, Dr. Nichols, on here plenty of times, who's just a wonderful psychotherapist. But just the way that we talk to people. And so many arguments, when you're listening to what happened in an argument or a dispute or why people haven't been talking for whatever, it's so simple to turn it around. Just be kind. In the middle of an argument, just flip the switch and be kind. Express some kindness, and it will go in the other direction. And it will go in the other direction. If your guy is not able to get a full erection, and you may not be saying anything or arguing at the time, but if you are just kind and say something kind, it can go in the other direction. That mental piece has everything to do with the vascularity and how the veins function in the body. And if they are depleted because of the traumatic stress that you're placing on them, then that's the performance that you're going to get. And so when we start blaming people and saying, well, he can't satisfy me anyway, how much are you contributing to that? So that's what we're going to talk about in the upcoming weeks as well. But true acts of kindness come from the heart. And if it's not in your heart yet, then it's just like the fitness not being in you yet. It's something that we work towards. And until we get to a point where going out to the gym or taking a run or getting on our bike feels like an organic extension of who we are and what we do, then we'll never get there. And so this thing of expressing kindness, yes, it comes from the heart, but if you're just not a kind person yet, you're going to have to work at it until it becomes an organic extension of who you are and what you do. So that's what I want to say about kindness. We can flip over to the vibrance piece over in the food piece. We talk about watermelons. We talk about urine, your color of urine. So there's a lot of good tips in here. You can get this on our website, lifebydallas.com. But we also have temple restoration, that is restoring the body. All of these basic things for health and fitness are the things that the body needs to be able to function sexually, to be able to function mentally, physically, everything. It all ties back to the nutritional aspects, the physical aspects, the mental aspects of just what we're doing holistically. So there's not going to be a show that we don't talk about all three of these, because they go together intricately in order for us to be whole. You want to be a whole person and have just that health emanating from you and just looking vibrant and just all cheery, then we're going to have to do all of these things together. So I'm going to leave for another commercial break. And then I'm going to come back and answer the question, was it working this weekend? So if I said, was it working this weekend? What is it for you? That it may be the penis, it may be the brain, It may be the heart, it may be the legs, it may be the feet, whatever. But was it working? And I'm willing to bet you that if I get 5 comments on whether or not it was working, that I can tie them all back to something very basic that we all need to do on a regular basis to make sure that it is working. I don't have my producer today, so I don't know if we're going to a commercial break. If we're not going to a commercial break, I'm going to do a commercial break. And so in 10 seconds, if they don't give me a commercial break, we will be doing a commercial break with our local corporate sponsors, who would be Life by Dallas, True Pop Popcorn, for sure. Okay, so we're going to go and count together.
Sports
10, 9,
is
8, 7, 6.
Fast track at peak speed, moving across the ice, blockers, hitters, B-team, beatdowns, and knockouts, double headers, playoffs, touchdowns, smackdowns, on the mat or on the track, the spirit of a champion, the triple-double, make that double front flip. This is what we do.
So we did do a short commercial break, but while we have you here, we want to do a commercial break for our corporate sponsors. So what we had to get used to is the fact that Life by Dallas is a conglomerate, and True Pop Popcorn happens to be one of many things that we do. And it will be True Pop Popcorn that will be sponsoring this show. It will be True Pop Popcorn that will be responsible for you getting all of the sexual health information that you need in the upcoming weeks, as well as all of the nutritional aspects on rejuvenation and detoxification that you need to make sure that you are functioning holistically, mentally, spiritually, and physically. And so let's talk about True Pop Popcorn for 10 seconds. True Pop Popcorn is a product that I designed. It is air popped, so the dietary fiber is high. We spray it with sunflower oil. Sunflower oil does 2 things. First of all, it makes it taste like it has butter on it without actually adding the butter to it. But more importantly, it's great for the oxalic acids that are in it that are good for your cellular structure. Then we also add nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast, for its namesake, has lots of nutrients, especially B12 and the other B vitamins that are very good for the body and are extremely difficult to find in a lot of food sources, especially natural food sources. So the nutritional yeast gives it that strong, cheesy taste, but again, the entire product is vegan, so it's air popped. We use the sunflower oil for the buttery taste. The nutritional yeast makes it taste cheesy, and then it's completely natural, definitely nutritious for its namesake, tastes great. The main selling point, people talk about your unique selling features or your unique selling point, your USP. And so sure, we could say that would be the nutritional yeast, but the unique thing about True Pop Popcorn is the fact that it is totally good for you and it tastes great. We do not have the nutritional yeast on the just plain good. There are many people that simply don't want anything on their popcorn, so this has a small amount of sunflower oil and sea salt only, but the others have a variety of 15, 20 herbs along with the garlic oil and powder and the garlic overdose, and then the crowd favorite is probably our top seller now. The garlic overdose used to be our top seller when we primarily focused on the health food stores only. Be very careful to go to dallaspopcorn.com and thank our corporate sponsors for being able to bring this show to you on a weekly basis. And trust me, in 30 days and 60 days and 90 days, you are going to become so qualified in taking care of yourself. Our whole mission and drive here is to educate you as much as humanly possible on how not just to become healthy, but to prevent illness and disease so that you can do that in a natural and holistic manner. So, was it working this weekend? I want you to think about your weekend. I want you to think about how great your weekend was and how it could have been better. I did some yard work, pulling a lot of the old summer flowers and putting out the winter flowers, the pansies and mums and things like that. Requires a lot of physical energy to do that, along with everything else that you have to do. For many years, I used to say fitness, for me, is being able to do what the body needs to do, what is required to do in terms of physical activity, with some more to go on. So, excuse me, when we talk about getting it, was it working? Was the body working? Excuse me. Was the body working this weekend to get you through the physical activity? Was it working? Was your wife satisfied with you? Was your husband satisfied with you this weekend sexually? That's a big problem on Monday mornings when people are going to the gym. I go to the gym every Monday morning, and I'm hearing conversations in the locker room. I'm hearing conversations on the gym floor. So I hear everything. It's nothing new under the sun, and I'm usually doing my thing and doing it intensely, so people often think that I'm not paying attention, but I hear a lot of things. Some things are actually funny, but more than they're funny, things are very sad, because a lot of people are struggling sexually. A lot of people are struggling physically, mentally, emotionally, simply because we refuse to do some simple things. And so when people are in the gym and they're on a treadmill and they're looking like they're going to have a heart attack any minute, I know what's happening in the bedroom, because if the body is not able to get through that, the cardiovascular piece, then that's a circulatory problem. When we test people in my practice, we test you bioelectronically, so I'm testing you on 32 different systems. And the way that works is that you're holding a metal rod that's being tested against a magnetic field in the machine and your body. So all of the little positive and negative things that are exuberating around you is what you're being tested on. So it's extremely accurate. It's far better than the blood and urine work, which is highly subjective on how the emotions are, what you've eaten, what your hormonal levels are that day, etc. So when we're testing, it's testing on 32 systems. And it starts in terms of the priority, I should say, on the most important system. And I always tell people you're only going to be as healthy as your gut. If you don't have gut health, you simply can't be healthy. So if that stomach is just not like flat, which means there's no undigested, putrefied, spoiled matter in the stomach, then you're going to be okay. But if that's not the case, when we have a little bulge there, it's not about people walking around saying they have a flat stomach, the vanity associated with that. It is the fact that means I'm bacteria free for the most part. The bacteria that begins to seep into the blood cells and causes all kinds of illness and disease. So that's what you're looking at. So the next time you look at that and you just say, oh, I just have a little pudge here, think about the trash can that's not completely empty. It's not busting at the seams, but there's some matter in there, especially if it's food matter. You simply don't want that to be there. Imagine. You don't even have to imagine. You know what happens when the trash can is not emptied from food matter, the trash can in the kitchen. That's what begins to happen when we carry the little pouch there. And when that happens, the vehicles that get to that, the cardiovascular, cerebrovascular system, which controls the blood flow in the body, that's not working, because then you start dealing with viscosity. Then you start dealing with blood fat particles. Then you start dealing with cholesterol. When you're dealing with those three aspects, viscosity, the blood fat, and the cholesterol, you're dealing with a system that's not flowing well. You're dealing with the backed up water system in your home. You simply are not going to get a full shower, speed head, or whatever you're looking for, the water coming out of the wash machines, if you don't call that plumber in and get him to unclog your system. And so whether you call in your naturopathic doctor, your fitness trainer, or whoever, somebody's got to come and clean the blood system up if you want to be able to perform sexually. It's as simple as that. So when I look at people talking about what they can do to you and this and that, please, not as long as you're carrying all that. It's just not humanly possible. So this is beyond the superficial jaw-jacking and all of the crap that we talk about, the fake news. This is about reality. And the reality is whether you want it, the physical body, being able to go out and do yard work and lawn work, or go out and participate in physical activities, sports, recreational activities, or anything else, or more importantly, what we are going to be focusing on a lot is our sexual health. And sex isn't limited to that 30 something crowd. I was talking to a friend last night. We were having dinner, and I was saying, and I talk about in show number 2 or 3, because a lot of what we talk about as traditional naturopaths, our practice is very closely related to one who practices traditional Chinese medicine. So when we talk about sexual health, we're talking about the elevation of the mind and the spirit to an entirely different level, where you're being able to do things that don't require what everybody else is doing to get to that level of ecstasy. And so when we connect all of the dots to everything, we want to be able to say, where am I on the totem pole? And it starts at the cardiovascular, cerebrovascular system. I don't care who you are or who you think you are. If your blood is not clean, then you're not going to be able to do it, whatever it is for you. And you might be the instructor, the preacher that needs to prepare a sermon that's going to not have people sleeping on the pews, but jumping on the pews, whether you're the teacher at a high school where you're teaching French. Whatever the case is, you need to be able to do it well. And so here we are. It's just like what you can do is you can stick your hand out, and for the sexual function of the male. So the 18-year-old, the 18 and below, it says that no matter what they do in their sleep, their erection is straight up like the thumb, and then as you move to the mid-20s or so, it starts to be somewhat at that level. And so it's the mid-30s, that 30-something person who can get an erection that's pretty much parallel to the floor, but it's not perpendicular. And then when we get down here to my age group, the 50 and above, it's just like, can't even get it up to a parallel under normal circumstances. That's under normal circumstances. So it's a person that's driving the vintage car, the classic Mustang or whatever. It's not the car that you want to put on the highway, because just technically compared to new technology, it's not going to perform like the new Mercedes 2019 whatever. But if that Mustang has been in the care of a company or a car specialist, or people that work on vintage cars and keep them in pristine condition, if it's the car that's being displayed as the classic car at the auto show in January, then that car, even though it's a 60 classic and it's supposed to perform like this, because of the maintenance, because of the care that's been put into it, it can perform like this. So that's our whole thing, is how we go from here to here. There's a technique, there's a process, there's a guidebook in terms of how to get you from your inadequate performance levels, I should say. Whether it's thinking clearly, moving physically, adapt to things, or the whole sexual functionality, is that we can get you there. And it all starts with what we're putting in our body, how often we're moving our body, and how we think. Not about our body, but just how we think about life in general, what that mental attitude is. And that's for sure. So every week, we're also going to do a wrap up. We're going to address your questions and comments that came in during the week, or wrap it up, putting it all together with all of the segments that we covered. And then what we're going to do is leave you with a to-do thing. So the biggest to-do thing, we have teas. I don't usually push our stuff like I should or want to. I just feel that, you should be able to intelligently come and check out our website and do some things. But I'll talk about our herbal green tea blend. We use this a lot in South Africa. And people that have been sick their entire adult lives are able to take a bag of our tea, which will last you 6 weeks if you take it twice a day. And notice what color it is. It's got lots of green particles in there. And so I had someone, and I'm bringing this up because I had a good friend send me a text message this morning about some Centrium or some multivitamin pills. And I was just like, seriously, putting pills into the system, just organically, it's not going to blend together. It's just like me having a fake plant here and giving it real food, or trying to give fake food to a real plant. It just doesn't work synergetically. So this is green, and what I didn't say about the whole cardiovascular, cerebrovascular system is that green foods clean the blood. But if the system is already clogged, it's going to be difficult to get something to unclog it without doing the initial piping work. So it needs to be in a liquid form. And so we've engineered this product with the right different green herbs. It's about 8 in there, along with some other things to stimulate and act as catalysts because the body is not working, to be able to allow the body to assimilate the green herbs that are in there properly. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration when we're doing things. So this is our organic herbal green tea blend, and you can read all about it on our website, lifebydallas.com. We will be opening up. We've already had the website Ask Dr. Dallas. We want to be able to have that be your platform to ask your questions and to comment on things and to get other information. We're just going to launch that in October. So I want to thank everybody for putting up with me today. We just wanted to kind of get out here and introduce ourselves, give you a feel of me, because that's the only person that's on the show today, but to know that we're going to have 4 15-minute segments every week, and 1 or 2 of those segments will be focusing on your sexual health. We do have a whole line of sexual health CDs. We will make them available when we debut the Ask Dr. Dallas site. So we will have our commercials next week. We will have guests next week. We will have everything in place next week. But in the meantime, I need your questions. I need your comments. I need your desires for what your holistic hour will look like and what you want it to look like for you. So shoot me an email, dallas@lifebydallas.com. You can also call us at 240-200-9793. And you can go to our social media pages. I put more on my personal page, Minister Dallas, at Facebook. We're also on LinkedIn. You can find all of that information when you go to our website. Thanks so much for joining us today. I've had a great time. I hope this has been helpful for you. And I guarantee you that this will be the show to watch in the upcoming weeks. You're going to get a lot of good information. Thanks for being a part of Ask Dr. Dallas.